What up? It's your boy Laughlin. Hope you guys are excited for week 7. That means we got 2 weeks left. Isn't that crazy? What is time? Who knows? But you know what time it is? It's time to paint. So to review real quick about what we did last time is what seems like forever ago, 2 weeks ago. You should have put your name and stuff in your journal. Sketchbook. And then we talked about drawing and stuff is just using straight lines and curvy lines, which is essentially, if you know how to write the alphabet, you know how to draw stuff. And that drawing is essentially, well, art really is expressing an idea with visual vocabulary, similar to how in writing we use words to express ideas. Then, if you've had me before, this should be re-practice. This is your first time. Hi. We practice some blind contour drawings with those 2 rules. We'll use blind contours as warm-up activities because they are important for building those art skills, and we did some more practices and all that jazz. Cool. So now what I need you to do is just turn to an empty page in your book. And then if you could, just take actually, let's go over the materials we need first today. So first, you need your sketchbook. You don't have to put paint on yours. I did because I teach a bunch of classes. So you'll need a pencil. This container that came in your supply package. These brushes that came in your supply package. Oh, this paint that came in your supply package. As well as I need you to supply yourself with your own cup of water that you can tell I've already used because it's gross looking. Maybe I should have thought about that before making a video. It looks like I just peed into a cup. Well, that's awkward. So anywho, you get all this fun stuff from your supply packages. Today, you'll just need to first open up. Now, what I suggest is that what I like is that because it comes in this little plastic thing, it won't get everything wet and all that jazz. You can always reuse this bag. It just opens like that. You get your brushes out that way. We'll talk about brush care in a separate video, but for right now, you just need some brushes for this. I'm going to pull out the brush here in a second. So the containers that I gave you guys will be our palettes. I realize you're like, dude, this just looks like some crappy Chinese restaurant to-go container, and you're not too wrong. I could have ordered us wet palettes from the internet, and they cost like $20 each, or I could have spent $1 and got pretty much the same thing. We won't be using this as a wet palette today. We're just going to be using it as a palette, but it's here, and hopefully next week we'll set up our palette for the first time. We're just so excited. It's like the best day in painting class. We just set up the palette. So just save the lid. Secondly, you'll need your primary colors from your paint set. So I tried to get us a paint set that would have enough colors that mostly make sense to y'all. So your primary colors are, see, I paused so that way you could yell it out or in your head. Blue, yellow, red. Those are the colors you can't mix to make other colors. They are the primary colors. Without them, we don't have other colors. So I'm going to get my blue, which I love that half the tube is just air. Like, thanks. I'm going to get some yellow. If you notice, we've got some different yellows in here. Let's go with just your good old bright lemon yellow. For the blue, I choose ultramarine. I mean, you could choose cobalt, ocean, cerulean, who cares? And then my red, I'm going to go with vibrant red, brilliant red, because it's brilliant. I'm going to set the rest of my paint aside. Okay. What we're going to do today is we're basically just kind of practicing This first assignment is basically how can we practice kind of all get up to skill with our hand skills when it comes to watercolors and painting. We usually spend the first half of the semester on watercolors and then the other half on more opaque medium like acrylics. But with, things being weird, we're going to start with watercolor and probably spend the last few weeks of next semester doing opaques. Anywho, let's set up our palette. So I'm going to put this aside for right now. So we're going to be practicing gradations today. Gradations, if you remember from doing the elements notes and the elements and principles notes, value is the difference between light and dark, right? If you think about pencils, when you're shading stuff, that's value. Gradation is when you go from one hue to another. In this case, we'll be using the word hue a lot because it's the painterly term for color. It's a little bit more specific than just color. So I'm going to use my three primaries. These are wet tube watercolors. You're probably used to using those like crappy ones in the little circle trays that get all gunky because no one washes their brushes out because they're too lazy. This is not like acrylic paints, temper paints, oil paints, because this is like a concentrate. You wouldn't just like drink a whole bottle of that Migos stuff. You wouldn't drink a whole bottle of cold brew coffee concentrate. No, you water it down, which is weird because these are called watercolors. So you can provide your own water and your own dirty pee mug that we're talking about. So to do that and not waste the only paint supplies you have for the entire semester, you're just going to put like a pea-sized dollop of paint. So first, to open your paint, you're going to notice it's like sealed. On the cap, you'll notice that one end is where you unscrewed it. Another end has this nice little pokey thing. Let's see if I can get it better here. See the little pokey thing? Someone take the pokey thing and stab it on top. Boop. And now it's open. So I'm going to press from the back of the tube. And like I said, these are special. And there's probably going to be about a finger's worth of space down here at the bottom. Watercolors are made out of pretty much pigment, which means the stuff that makes the color, and burnt linseed oil. I realize you're like, the oil, what? It's a thing. It makes it work. So you'll notice little like liquidy bubbles bubble up. That's just that linseed oil that's separated from the pigment. If you want, you can kind of shake them up. If they're already closed, you can do the tappy tap. And then just put just the littlest. You don't need a lot for this. Just a little bit of paint. I'll put my blue down. This looks way bigger than it's supposed to be because it's full of air bubbles. So let me show you a better one with the blue. See how little paint you need? You don't need much. Look at that. Boop. And then my red. So I'm going to unscrew it. Break the seal. Recap it. Tippy taps to get it all shaken up. Look how little paint I use. I cannot stress that enough. You don't need a lot. Like I said, this is like concentrate. Okay, so I'm going to move this to the side. Let me get my cup of water. My sketchbook. I know you're probably thinking, but dude, isn't the sketchbook paper like super thin and will totally like break down? The answer to that is yeah, sort of. But I'm going to try to show you how to not do that with the paper. I did test it out. And even though it's not the best, if you feel the paper, right, you can tell that it's slick. Usually with watercolor, we have a little tooth to it, but it's okay. So now that we're all set up, we've got our water, our paint is made, we've got our brushes out. For this one, I'm going to use this size brush. It is a number 6 square tip for those keeping track at home. Because of new brushes, make sure you dip them in the water a little bit and kind of break down that wax that they come produced with. If you want, you can just kind of leave it soaked in the water. But let me tell you, pro tip number 1, if you leave your brushes in a cup of water overnight or for a long time, they're going to fall apart and break. These are all the brushes I can give you. So if you take care of your materials that you're going to have to return back to me, like brushes, scissors, and stuff, you'll be okay. Cool. Value. So top of my page, I'm going to write the word value. This does not mean the McChicken is only $1 value. This means darkness and light. For our terms, we'll be looking at gradation, the transition from one color to another. To practice this, let's go ahead and make some boxes. So I'm going to make this little hot dog box over here. Cool. It's totally straight. I'm going to take my box. I'm going to divide it in half. Then I have 2 halves. I'm going to divide those in half. And then I'm going to divide those in half, so I should have 8 boxes. So first, we're going to do a value scale, dark to light, with watercolors. So here's what's cool about watercolors. If I want to make watercolors darker, I just add more pigment, more paint. If I want to make them lighter, I add more water. Isn't that crazy? So let's do blue first, since that yellow is still a little frothy. So I'm going to dip my brush in just a little bit of water and then pull just a little bit of paint. Let's see if I can zoom in a little better. All right, there we go. So I got some water. I'm just going to pull a little bit of that paint out. See how it's starting to make a little blue puddle? That wouldn't put much pigment on the paper. So I'm going to make a bigger blue puddle. A blue puddle. Man, I really feel like Bob Ross right now. This is very strange for me. I'm going to need a little bit more water. So I'm going to dip my brush in the water. Tippy tap. So when you're making watercolor with these palettes and wet watercolors, it's all about making these puddles. And so you can charge these puddles with as much pigment or paint as you want to get the dark color you need, or the more water you want to make them as light as you need. So since I'm working from dark to light, I'm probably going to want to make a puddle that is pretty dark. It should look pretty similar to the blue splotch of paint. All right, cool. That looks like a pretty dark, nice puddle. So now it's time to make that value scale. So first, I'm going to make sure that because this paper is thin and slick, it doesn't like water too much, but I don't have too much water on the paper, so I'm just going to kind of do this on the brush, just kind of get some little extra water off. I'm going to dip my brush in the puddle that I made. So once I paint this first box, I notice that it's not very dark. So I'm going to add some more paint to my puddle. Now you can see how the paper is starting to kind of crinkle like bacon. That's when I know it's starting to reach that saturation point, and I probably shouldn't put more water. So I'm just going to pull some more paint, really drop that pigment in there. Cool. Then I'm going to take some water and pull that paint out. Dip into my puddle. pull that paint out. Because as I add just the littlest bit of water, now if you notice that your paper is starting to what we call pelt, you see little pieces of paper fiber start to little dots thingies start to pick up. That means you probably reached how much water you should be putting on this, and you should probably chill out, let it dry for a little bit, and then go back into it. I'm gonna smooth out these streakies. I don't expect this to be perfect. This is more of just a practice kind of thing, just because it's just thin sketchbook paper. But I want you to kind of just practice this before we do like a real thing. Okay. So now let's try doing one color to another. So I'm going to draw another box. Divide in half, 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 all the divisions. All right, so I'm going to go from red here and yellow here and have them meet in the middle. If I do red and orange, what color should it be in the middle? Is that color, maybe? Oh, sorry, if I was red and yellow, it should be orange in the middle. So, get some red. Still have blue in my paint brush. Red puddles. I'm going to go a little bit faster this time just because I'm not trying to waste your time watching me paint stuff. Oh yeah, that's good red. Now I'm going to add the yellow.